Right, well, here I am, back with this oily Royal Enfield 350 Bullet, and I've taken the cylinder barrel off because what I'm going to do is I'm going to machine circular channels, not in the cylinder head, but in this area around the pushrod holes in the top of the cylinder barrel face, so that I can use O-rings to seal the pushrod areas while I use my Model G copper head gasket to actually seal the compression. So the O-rings will take care, hopefully, of the oil in the pushrod tunnels. I've also got to consider what might try and get down the cylinder head studs, so I'll probably use sealant of some sorts, and as already discussed, I'm going to machine grooves for O-rings in the sides of all the sleeve nuts, the 4 of them I think I'll do. But I'm glad that I lifted the barrel off, actually, because everything looked alright from outside, and this was a new base gasket that I fitted with well seal on both sides of it. But if we look there, hopefully the camera will pick this up, there's a chunk blown out between that stud hole and the pushrod tunnel, and likewise there's similar evidence of blowing and damage there. And what's been happening, we look at the cylinder head and remember that I pointed this out, that adjacent to these two stud holes you can see where there's been blowing past the head gasket when the compression was sealed by the head gasket around this face, the composite head gasket. Compression and combustion pressure was getting past that point there and that point there and pressurising the cylinder head and barrel stud holes. So the pressure was building up, travelling, well, in whichever way it could, trying to get out, and it's obviously found the easiest way to get out is blow that piece of the paper base gasket out of its way and get out into the pushrod tunnels. And in doing so, it's pressurised the whole sort of pushrod tunnel area, and rocker boxes and so on, and it certainly would help blow oil out of wherever it had a chance of getting out from. So I'm going to deal with quite a few things here while this top end's apart. Like I say, I'll get the compression under control. It'll be easier to use this to deal with that than try and reface this. And to be honest, I could reface it. It would take considerable time, but there's such a small area there to hold the compression by at those points. I don't like it anyway, so I'm going to hold the compression here and just worry about using this face just to keep the oil inside and under control. So I'm going to get this cylinder barrel into my pillar drill now, and I've got a device there, a hole saw actually, that when I've got the cylinder barrel clamped nice and sound in there, I'll be able to cut some circular channels into this face here and this face here, which will enable me to use O-rings. So then I'll know that at least the pushrod tunnels aren't going to spew any oil at the cylinder head joint, and I'll be able to fit the barrel with a new base gasket that won't be troubled by any pressure from the combustion chamber when the engine's firing. So that's where we are. That's where we're at the moment, and hopefully I'll update this when I've got my O-rings grooves machined, got the cylinder barrel back on, and hopefully there'll be a bit of progress and some developments to report on fairly soon. Here we are with what was, and hopefully no longer is, that leaky 1951 350 Royal Enfield Bullet. I've been working on it once again after that last ride, and we saw that horrendous oil leak was still there. I took the head off again, obviously, and I also, rather luckily, decided I'd take the cylinder barrel off as well and just check, and thankfully I did that, because that's the cylinder base gasket there with a chunk blown out of it by what was escaping compression, which was escaping across the top of here when we had a composite head gasket and blowing down these stud holes and pressurising inside there, and the weakest spot, obviously it must have been a fair old effort to try and blow past the cylinder head nuts themselves, so the pressure was going down and blowing out into the crankcase in the instance of one, and blowing out into the pushrod and rocker chamber through the other one. So anyway, that would have been pressurising the crankcases probably to quite a high degree actually, and certainly aggravating and encouraging oil leaks. So I've got that, or hopefully have got that under control now, by having lapped the cylinder head and the liner spigot into each other. So I'll be holding compression there now, and this gasket face here that was relied upon to hold the compression with this composite gasket will no longer be doing that. And I've also got these O-rings. I've machined out channels around the pushrod tunnels there to accept O-rings, so hopefully they'll be keeping the oil in the pushrod tunnels under control. That's not concentric to the pushrod tunnel, and that's actually deliberate, because pushrod tunnels in the barrels are never really truly concentric to what you got in the cylinder head, so it's a sort of bit of an average between the fit of the barrel and the head and the offset of the pushrod tunnels in their castings. I've tried to sort of make allowances for them as much as possible. I may also use a bit of sealant as well, just as a bit of backup actually. So I'm hoping that this time I should actually have got this engine to clean up its act a little bit. Another thing that I've done, I discussed already that between a couple of fins on the cylinder head there appeared to be what looked like a spot of some sort of filler, and I confirmed that there was leakage from that down one of the cylinder head nut tunnels by spraying WD-40 down it, and it was leaking out between the fins. So in an effort to stop any oil seeping or escaping down the cylinder head nut tunnels and perhaps out between the head and barrel faces, I've machined grooves into these 4 internal cylinder head sleeve nuts and fitted O-rings to them, which I'm hoping will keep the oil from going down in the first place, and therefore not being able to come out here at all. So that's where I'm at now. I'm finishing for the day, and I think tomorrow I'll probably be putting the cylinder head on and attending to a few of the minor bits and pieces, and with any luck I might get to the point when I'm able to start it up and take it for a run, and fingers crossed might get as far as I want to go and back without the thing plastering itself in oil. So here's hoping, and watch this space.